you better learn how to leverage your credit, because my credit was shot. I couldn't even leverage credit to make any decisions to get me by. My credit was shot from college. So it taught me, like, you better get your credit together, because when I did seek resources and things, that's what people wanted. They wanted to run a credit check. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to qualify for this. So that's when I learned in that moment, like, you actually do need to prioritize your credit. Those aren't just a 3-digit number. You actually will need these things in life.
Little toughness. You got challenges that you're going to run across.
Welcome to another episode of Elite Psyche.
Have a story with some rocks and some bumps and some bruises along the way. And the decisions that I made during those times are what built me into being a leader.
You know, one of the challenges I had, well, it wasn't a challenge, but I kind of really wished that I had some of the stories you talk about. I used to hear people say, I was born in the garage and I slept under my dad's car, and every time he backed out, I thought he was going to run over me, but I made it. And I'm like, I don't have one of those. I wish I had one of those, but my grind became one of those, because I was the guy who just jumped out there, which I don't tell anybody to do, but I just left AT&T when I saw the system of network marketing. And the reason why is that I remember at AT&T, I was a top sales there for like 3 or 4 years. And I used to always help out some of the reps in the office, because they was afraid to go knock on doors. And now we did a lot of cold calling. So I would tell them, ride with me, and I'll go and help you. Now, they knew the product much better than me. I didn't hardly know the product at all. But they knew the product, but they never would leave the office.
Yeah.
So when I went out with them and rode with them and they started making sales, I remember my boss, this is before I ever heard of network.
Your who? You remember your who?
Oh! I had a boss a couple of times. Like,
I wish I was recording that.
No, yeah, I worked for the Atlanta Journal. I had a boss there, and the AT&T, those two. But he came to town, and I asked him one day, he was like the regional guy. I said, since I'm helping them, can I get a percentage or something like? He said, no, we can't pay that way. And I told him, this is literally, I said, well, the area manager gets a piece, the district manager, the regional manager, why don't you just slide me in there and let me get a little cut too, since everybody's getting a piece? Oh, no, we can't do that. So when I heard about network marketing, it was the first thing I heard about long distance service. I'm thinking, man, you can get paid like that?
Yeah.
And that's what made me just jump out there. I don't tell people to do that, because I went out there, left my job and everything.
I jumped too. And I want to clarify that when I say experiences build leadership, it doesn't have to be a sob story. I did not grow up in poverty. I grew up in a very middle-class neighborhood or environment or family. I had everything that I needed. I was considered spoiled as a little girl. But
you're the only child?
I'm an only child, and I was spoiled rotten. But I also, like my mom, made decisions that molded me into leadership. My dad made decisions like sending me away to summer camps where I had to go out from Atlanta to South Carolina, or Atlanta to Chicago, Atlanta to Florida, and figure it out amongst a group of people. You learn some leadership skills. You learn some survivalship skills instead of being a crutch, on my parents. Trying out, like being encouraged to not just be the cheerleader, but try out for captain. I became the captain of the cheerleader. Little girls and, who are part of the Girl Scouts develop leadership skills. Little boys who are part of Boy Scouts develop leadership skills. If you are ever the captain of the football team, or, the leader of the basketball team, you're developing leadership skills. And those are very positive things, but those things teach you how to lead a team and an organization to get a result. Right? We want to win the game. We learn how to do it. If we lose the game, we take accountability for it together. We go in here, we look at the tape, we play back, we discuss it, we hold people accountable. We get out there and we do it again. So it doesn't have to be that story of I slept under a bridge and I didn't have food to eat. That wasn't my story. Not growing up, later on in life, I made decisions that were not of leadership, that caused me to experience certain poverty and the hardship that I experienced in life. I honestly brought on to myself, because from birth, it wasn't designed for me to experience those things. So I still believe that leadership can be learned for sure. And it has a lot to do with your experiences, and the environment around you. And that's why I am so, like, when we mentor youth, I am always encouraging them to find somebody outside of their immediate circle. You're not going to get what you need in your home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when the type of youth, the demographic of youth that we deal with is usually super low poverty. They're usually in situations where mom and dad, if there is a mom and dad in the home together, they're working all the time, 3 and 4 jobs just to make ends meet. So they're not getting that nurturing and that education and that, the example that they need. They're usually in environments of the kids that I'm speaking of that we're mentoring now, where, they have a drug addicted parent. Like, there's just a lot of chaos and trauma. And so for them, I'm always telling them to build a different environment, like build a different environment around you. It's going to be hard, but somebody has to teach you how to stand up and lead yourself. And so that means cut the pictures out of the magazines. If, you're looking around in a home where, it's unsafe, is barely habitable, cut pictures out and put these things around you. Walk a little further outside your neighborhood if you're old enough to do it, and see people and try to connect with somebody. And those relationships, those experiences, that type of exposure will change your life and develop the leader in you.
So tell us your lowest moment in business, and what were you thinking during that time? What would, if you can say it, you don't have to say what you were doing, but what would you?
My lowest moment in business, if I'm being totally honest, I have not experienced a low moment in business necessarily. As an entrepreneur, I've experienced some low moments.
Right.
But as an entrepreneur, the way I see it, like, my mindset is just a little different, Tony. The way I see it is, when you decide to become an entrepreneur, everything from there is a plus. The lessons, the wins, the challenges, because most people don't get to make money from their own idea. Most people don't get to start companies and it be based around their own dreams, goals, and desires. So when we're talking about low moments, I haven't had too many low moments in business. Sure, there's been periods of times where the company didn't make money and, things like that. But I don't know if, like, that's almost disrespectful to call a low moment. Like,
well, what I mean is, funds are low, things are not coming in right. You got to pay your bills. You got to pay rent or mortgage. You got to pay.
I didn't experience that as an entrepreneur. I definitely experienced it as an employee.
Really?
For sure. Yeah. The years 2008 to 2010 as an employee, like, since I've been an entrepreneur, I have always been able to pay my bills. In fact, since I've been an entrepreneur, I've been able to pay my bills, my daughter's bills, my mama's bills. Like, I've really been blessed as an entrepreneur. But I believe that my journey had a lot to do with it. The lowest point of my life was during the recession period, the first recession that I ever experienced as an adult, between 2008 and 2010, where I was in real estate and property management at that time. And the world took a hit, especially the industry of real estate and property management. I had no money skills. I made a lot of money. I was making like $250,000 total based on salary and commissions at that time. But I was also spending that money as soon as it was coming in. I was the shopaholic. I had to have all the nice things. And so when that recession hit and I was laid off of that job, I didn't have more than 6 months worth of money to survive on. And, that recession took a hit for over a almost 3-year period of time. And so I went from making like $250,000 that particular year in commissions, or the year right before it, thinking I had made it, to having to humble myself and going back to work for $11 an hour. $11 an hour. And at this time, I had a really big house, almost 4,000 square feet, 5 bedrooms on a basement, just me and my daughter. I had the nice cars. And we lost everything. I mean, we lost everything. And we're talking about low moments. Like, I'm not talking about just monetary loss. It was more like literally having to go to the gym to take a shower because the utilities are off in the home. Literally having to at the same time go to the gym and fill up gallons of water. And I'm in there pretending like when people that are in the gym that I'm familiar
Yeah.
with, they see me in here and pretending that I'm on this water challenge and I just
Right,
drink all this water, when really I was filling up water gallons to go home and pour in the back of my toilet tank to be able to flush my toilet. I am talking about having to line my toilet with a plastic bag and sit my daughter on the toilet, telling her to take a poop in the plastic bag. You pee in the toilet, you poop in the plastic bag, because we got to go like 5 P's in between a flush. Like, I'm talking about playing hide and seek in the dark with your daughter because you don't want her to go to school and tell people that you don't have lights at home, so we make it a game. Right? Those were some of the lowest points of my life. And it was because I was too prideful to ask for help. I could have asked for help. But everybody was experiencing, like everybody that I knew was losing things around them, you know. My mom at that time was also in real estate, so the world crashed for her too. Money was depleted for her as well. My dad had moved recently to San Francisco, and he was preparing for retirement in one of the highest cost of living cities in the country. So I couldn't ask him. My daughter's father and I had recently broken up, and I just wasn't gonna ask him, you know, like
right.
So it was just a lot going on. But even during though it was a low point financially, it was a drop in the bucket compared to all of the great things that I've experienced. But I think that I needed that moment. And I say I think because there was no other moment for me during that time. It's the moment, but it's the moment also that I had the biggest paradigm shift. Like, you know what? I can't rely just on one job to provide for me, because at any time, the same thing with like network marketing brought me too close to that moment, brought me back there. Like, oh, I can't rely on this one income.
Right.
Because that could happen again. 2008 to 2010 could happen again. It brought me to that moment. It also said, you better learn how to leverage your credit, because my credit was shot. I couldn't even leverage credit to make any decisions to get me by. My credit was shot from college. So it taught me, like, you better get your credit together, because when I did seek resources and things, that's what people wanted. They wanted to run a credit check. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to qualify for this. So that's when I learned in that moment, like, you actually do need to prioritize your credit. Those aren't just a 3-digit number. You actually will need these things in life. And then I also said that I needed to figure out how to, at that time, my mindset was on saving money, save. Because with all the money that I made, and all the success that I had as an employee at that time, there's no way I shouldn't have been able to weather that storm.
Right.
But that's what happened. And because of that moment, it's the reason that I reward my mom the way that I reward my mom today. Now that I'm in a different financial position, it's the reason that I reward, because her doors were always open to me. It was never a question. It was never, to make me feel miserable or like a bad parent. Like, my childhood bedroom was always available. It's the reason that I reward my daughter in a way, because she never ever made me feel bad or guilty for not having certain things. If I couldn't do, somehow God always lined it up so that she had everything that she needed, right? And even more. Like, I would always scrape pennies together to provide for her, so she never felt like she missed out. But there were some things that I just had to say no to, and she never ever made me feel bad for those things. So now I reward her differently, because life looks differently for us, and the things that I couldn't expose her to as a child, she now gets as a young adult. And that was a 2-year period of time of complete disastrous loss, but it took years to rebuild. And that's when the entrepreneur, I had been trying to be an entrepreneur since I was like 18 years old. Just these things were more like side hustles. I didn't even realize what I was doing was entrepreneurship. I was just always looking for a new way to earn some extra money. But when I was consciously developing the entrepreneur in myself, was a result of the most traumatic experience that I experienced financially in my own life. That 2008 to 2010 time period would change who Donni Wiggins is, what my priorities were, and what my life stood for. And in 2009, 2010, I started with my first legitimate business, which was women's clothing stores, scrape pennies by. And we started that very strategically and creatively. And then in 2011, I was introduced to network marketing. And I'd always been attracted before 2011 to commission-based employment, just like you, because you write your own check, right? You want to make more money, work longer hours, you'll make more money, sell higher cost products. So network marketing was just like another commission-based job for me. Like, you mean to tell me I can do this in my own time without being on anybody's clock? And if I want to make more money, just do more of this activity? Sure. So that's when I started to crawl out of that hole, because I had.
Make sure that you like and subscribe and hit the all button and all that kind of stuff, because we're going to have a lot of good interviews on this podcast.